The Prime Minister has been accused of selling out British fishermen after David Davis declared British waters will become sovereign, allowing the UK to negotiate access as an independent coastal state. After 2020, Iain Duncan Smith claimed a lot of MPs were uneasy about the announcement because it means Brexit Britain will not have control of fisheries during the implementation period. Speaking on BBC News, Mr. Duncan Smith warned the government it would have to deal with a backlash, insisting fisheries could not be sold out post-Brexit. He said, "One area I think there is the concern about, I think most of all, is fishing." BBC GETTYBrexit News, Iain Duncan Smith warned about betraying British fishermen. There does seem to be a real concern about the fact that back in 1970 the fishing industry, the fishermen were basically dumped for a deal with the European communities as it was then. People don't want a repeat of that now. We want to take back control. And iconically, taking back control means control of our fishing waters, and we will license people onto them. Now it appears that at least through the implementation period nothing will change, and I think that will be a concern, and government clearly has to deal with this because a lot of MPs here are very uneasy about that right now. Speaking on Monday, David Davis outlined the future of Britain's fisheries. He said, "We've agreed specific safeguards when it comes to annual fishing negotiations. These arrangements will only apply for the negotiations in 2019 since we will still be a member state. Through 2020, we'll be negotiating fishing as an independent coastal state, deciding who can access our waters and on what terms. For the year where it is relevant, we will agree the European Union will have to consult with this ahead of negotiations. One area I think there is the concern about, I think most of all, is iconically is fishing." Iain Duncan Smith, and the United Kingdom's share of total catch won't be changed, protecting the interests of the United Kingdom's fishing community. Reacting to the fisheries agreement, the SFF's chief executive Bertie Armstrong said, "This falls far short of an acceptable deal. We will leave the EU and leave the CFP, but hand back sovereignty over our seas a few seconds later. Our fishing community's fortunes will still be subject to the women largesse of the EU for another 2 years. Put simply, we do not trust them to look after us. So we issue this warning to the EU. Be careful what you do, with the consequences later will be severe. To our politicians, we say this: some have tried to secure a better deal, but our governments have let us down. As a consequence, we expect a written, cast-iron guarantee that after the implementation period, sovereignty will mean sovereignty, and we will not enter into any deal which gives any other nation of the EU continued rights of access or quota other than those negotiated as part of the annual coastal states negotiations." Ruth Davidson, the leader of the Scottish Tories, said she wouldn't support a deal that does not deliver full control of fish stocks and vessel access. Monday, March 19, 2018, British Brexit Minister David Davis, and EU Chief Negotiator Michel Barnier meet at the European Commission in Brussels. Campaign group Fishing for Leave shared a similar sentiment, having already warned the government the country's fishing industry could be consigned to the museum if their fleet's interests are not protected. Spokesman Alan Hastings said Mr. Davis's announcement is a total sellout and just not for us. He added, "What part of being a vassal state satellite orbiting to the EU is a victory? What David Davis has capitulated to is an abject, disgusting betrayal. Fishing has no need to be in a transition. And now what is left of the British fleet is staring down the barrel of a gun. He should stay in Brussels, as his allegiance is obviously to the EU Ring of Stars and not Her Majesty, the Queen of the British people. It is time for him and Mrs. May to resign."